And even as they did not think it worthwhile to possess the knowledge of Elohim, Elohim gave them over to a worthless mind to do whatever is improper. So they didn't think it was worthwhile to possess. Okay, possess, we've talked about this in the past. It's not just knowing something, they're owning it. He offered them his commands, he offered them his instruction, he offered them his guidance, his wisdom, and all of that, and they didn't think it was worthwhile to own it, to possess it. So he said, fine, I'm going to give you over to a worthless mind to do whatever is improper. We're dealing with another thing that was critical to Paul's writings. Critical, okay? And that is that there's always this sort of dealing with those who were born into this and those that were not, and those that were actually doing it, whether they were born into it or not. He has this dichotomy he's always dealing with. He calls them the circumcision, the Jewish people that were born into covenant. And he calls them the uncircumcised, or the uncircumcision, those that were not. And we're going to see as we go through to eventually chapter 6 and 7, etc., that this whole issue is his main point. Is trying to understand that what you do and possess is what matters more than what you were born. But Paul deals with it over and over. Why? Because he's in places that have Jew and Gentile congregations more than the other guys are dealing with. His congregations have a very, I don't want to say balanced, but there's a lot of both in his congregations. I don't think all of his congregations are all Gentile. They weren't. He's got a lot of both in his congregations. Because he started out going into a town and going into the synagogue there where the Jews were. And then others would come in and he'd have this mix. And the mix did not naturally get along. There was a lot of evil going on, a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of uncomfortableness. Okay, and that's a lot of what we're going to be dealing with here with Shaul, all right? So all of this seems to come back again and again to the emotionally charged issue of those claiming vertical relationship through birth versus those claiming through choice and belief. Let's understand where we're starting. We started in chapter 1 with those claiming to be wise, they became fools. And they started doing things that were not instructed to do. At the end of chapter 2, we're finding out that it's not just the hearers, but the doers that make the difference. You have to be a hearer and doer. So if that's the context, then nothing in the middle can be doing away with the Torah. Nothing in the middle can be, because Torah was the problem when they were breaking it in chapter 1, and it's still a problem at the end of chapter 2. Who shall render to each one according to his works? Now, there are people out there now freaking out thinking I'm teaching salvation by works and this and that. Listen, just read what Paul is saying. I read this in the Are You Saved teaching, and I literally quoted this, and somebody put it in a video of me just reading this and said, see, there he is, he's teaching salvation by works. And all I did was quote this. I didn't explain it, I just read it. So then you must think that that's what Paul's doing, because I'm just reading it to you. Paul is saying, you're going to get rendered to you according to your works, either everlasting life to those who persist in good work, seek for esteem and respect and incorruptibility. If, then you get everlasting life. Oh, when Yeshua was asked what to do to receive everlasting life, he said, keep the commandments. Nothing's different here. Paul's teaching exactly like Yeshua. Now, when it says declared right, the Christianity has just totally messed this up. Think of it as more like shall be acquitted, shall be found innocent. Okay, we want to think, oh, we're right, because it's a bad translation into the Greek, into the English. It's those are the ones who have sinned and are doing things now, and not just hearers, but repent and do everything they're supposed to do. They will be declared acquitted and innocent so that they can then move forward into the incorruptible, into the forever. Does that make more sense? This whole declaring right thing has Christianity all out of whack, all out of seeing things that aren't there. And it's totally disempowering them from moving forward. Oh, they just naturally do what's in the Torah. That's what Christianity taught you, isn't it? Comma's in the wrong place. He's saying when the Gentiles who do not have Torah by nature, who has Torah by nature? The Jews. Gentiles don't have Torah by nature. He says, when a Gentile who doesn't have it by nature does what's in the Torah, although they're not having the Torah, they are now a Torah to themselves. In other words, they now, the phrase, the Torah to themselves, is just a challenging word. It doesn't mean they get to make up the law. It means that they are now subject in a way that you never understood before. Having the form of knowledge and the truth in the Torah. Okay, so the form of knowledge is also, well, they had a form of it, but it wasn't real. I don't know, whatever nonsense they say. You know what it really means? They understood what to do. They understood the form that Torah takes. This is what you do. This is how you observe it. Isn't that opposite of whatever you were told by Christianity? Oh, they just had a form of knowledge. They didn't have the real thing. No, this is saying the opposite of that. They had, it says, having the form of the knowledge. They know the form that it takes. They know what it looks like. And of the truth in the Torah, they have all of this. This is what you think of yourself. I'm a bringer of light. I teach the blind. I bring sight to the blind. I teach and instruct the foolish and the babes. And I do all these wonderful things. And I know the form. And I teach people all these things. And I have the truth of the Torah. He says, you then, listen, this is how I know I'm right. You just got to keep going forward. He says, for the name of Elohim is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. Wow. Because the Gentiles now are going to think that what you're doing is of Elohim, because you're an expert, because you're an authority, because you know. And they're going to now imitate you and claim that's of him. Now bear that in mind the next time you feel a pull or whatever, or an emotional desire to teach when you're not ready qualified yet, when you're not really ready for that. Because if you teach wrong and that person only knows what you taught them, that's what they're going to think the truth is. Circumcision of heart, they'll say now, oh, there it is. We're not circumcising in flesh now, it's of the heart. See, there it is, Romans 2, verse 29. But circumcision of heart is an Old Testament commandment. It's an Old Testament concept. It was required in the Old Testament. It's always been required along with the circumcision of flesh. It's not new. What he's simply saying is, you could go ahead and cut away your foreskin. It doesn't make you anything if you're not doing the covenant, which was, I agree to do everything that comes out of your mouth. The obedience. What was the circumcision? The sign of that agreement to do everything he says. In itself, it wasn't anything. It was just a sign of something. And that something needed to be in the heart.